It was a stormy night, the kind where the wind howls like wolves and the rain hits the windows with a relentless fury. Sarah, a young woman in her early 20s, was traveling alone to a remote village nestled in the mountains. She had received an urgent letter from her estranged uncle, who lived in a small, forgotten home in the heart of the village. The letter simply said, "Come. There is no time left. You must know the truth." Sarah had never met her uncle, and the only reason she knew him was through old family photographs that her mother had kept hidden. But her curiosity got the better of her, and she found herself on a bus that took her deep into the woods. When Sarah arrived, the village was eerily quiet. The houses seemed abandoned, their windows dark, and the streets empty. The only sign of life was an old woman standing by the edge of the road, staring at her with eyes full of sorrow. "You should not be here, child," the old woman warned in a hoarse voice. "This village is cursed. It is the home of the bloodsuckers." Sarah was taken aback but dismissed the warning, thinking the woman was just superstitious. She thanked her and continued toward her uncle's house, which was located at the end of a narrow path leading into the woods. Sarah's uncle's house was old, covered in moss and vines, and looked like it hadn't been lived in for years. She knocked, but there was no answer. Hesitant but determined, she pushed open the door, which creaked loudly. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the smell of decay. The furniture was covered in white sheets and everything was frozen in time. She called out, but no one responded. That was when she saw it, a large book lying open on a table. The pages were yellowed and the ink had faded, but the words were still legible. "The Bloodsucker's Curse," the title read. Sarah read aloud, and the words seemed to chill her very soul. Once, the village was thriving, but the bloodsuckers came. They came in the night, feasting on the villagers' blood. The curse began when the first of them, a man named Zahir, was bitten by one of the creatures. He sought vengeance, but became one of them. His thirst for blood was insatiable, and soon the entire village was infected. The bloodsuckers cannot die, and they can only be destroyed by the blood of their own kin. Sarah's hands trembled as she read, realizing that the bloodsuckers were no myth. They were real, and they were in the village. But the worst part was yet to come. Suddenly, Sarah felt a chill down her spine. She heard a whisper, barely audible, coming from the hallway. It was her uncle's voice, soft and broken, calling her name. She rushed toward it, but as she passed a dark corner, something grabbed her ankle. It was a pale, cold hand, but when she looked down, there was nothing there. Panicked, Sarah backed away and slammed into the wall, but then she heard it again, the whisper, now louder, more urgent. "Sarah, don't come any closer." This time, the voice was coming from the attic. Against her better judgment, Sarah climbed the creaky stairs. As she reached the top, the door to the attic opened on its own. In the dim light, she saw a figure standing at the far end, its back turned toward her. The figure was tall and thin, with long black hair that hung like a veil. It slowly turned around, revealing a face that was barely human. Its eyes were sunken, its skin pale, and its mouth stretched into a grotesque grin. "Sarah!" it hissed. "You shouldn't have come!" Before Sarah could react, the figure lunged toward her, its hands outstretched. She screamed and stumbled backward, falling through the open door. The creature was upon her in an instant, its cold breath washing over her neck. But before it could bite, a voice from behind shouted, "No!" It was her uncle. His face was gaunt and hollow, but there was a spark of recognition in his eyes. He grabbed the creature, pulling it off Sarah and pushing it into the shadows. "Run!" he shouted. "Get out of here now! You must leave before it's too late." Sarah froze, staring at him in disbelief. "Uncle, what is happening? Why are you like this?" Her uncle's face twisted in pain. I am no longer the man you knew. I have been cursed. The bloodsuckers. They will come for you too, unless you leave right now." Sarah didn't need any more convincing. She turned and fled down the stairs, her heart racing. The house seemed to grow colder with every step she took, and the sound of someone following her was growing louder. She burst through the front door and ran into the woods, not looking back. As she stumbled through the trees, she could feel something watching her. She heard footsteps, breathing, and whispers in the darkness. It was the bloodsuckers. They were closing in. She ran faster, her breath ragged, the sound of her own heartbeat deafening in her ears. But then, just as she thought she might escape, a figure stepped into her path. It was the old woman from the village. "You're too late," the old woman said, her voice filled with sorrow. "The curse has already claimed you. You are one of them now." Sarah froze, terror flooding her veins. She reached up to her neck, feeling the burning sensation that was now spreading across her skin. She looked down at her hands, and to her horror, they were pale, her nails elongated into sharp claws. The bloodsuckers were inside her. Sarah tried to scream, but no sound came out. The old woman stepped closer, her eyes now glowing with an unnatural light. "You should have listened," the woman said softly. "The curse cannot be escaped. Once the bloodsuckers claim you, there is no return." The darkness closed in around Sarah. The last thing she saw was her uncle, standing in the distance, his face twisted in agony. He had once tried to save her, but now he too was a prisoner of the curse. And then there was only silence.